We're going live, and when you're ready, Julie and Mike.
I'm unmuted.
Good evening. This is Julie Bitzer, and I'm your South Lakes District Director, as well as the Reston Association President for this particular year. I want to welcome you to joining us on this listening session for South Lakes. We did have one focused on North Point last week, and we have 3 more to go, one for Hunters Woods, one for Tall Oaks Lake Ann, as well as a general session. So this meeting tonight is really about listening truly to you. We'll give a short update on some matters that I know are of somewhat importance to you, but we want to really listen to you and hear about what we can do better. What do you feel might be missing in your world of live, work, play? And I just realized you're getting to see my lower level, and I was going to give you flowers instead. There we go. That's better. A few administrative things and some updates on who's joining me tonight. We do have our CEO, Hank Lynch. We have Mike Leone from our communications director and his team member, Philip Williams. Person we can't do without is our assistant secretary, Christina Easterly. Chris Schumacher, who is our capital projects director, and Cam, who is our covenants director. That's who I think we've got from staff. And then from my fellow board members, Robert Petrine, who's member at large and also our treasurer, and he lives in South Lakes, the best district there is. I am biased. So I think that's all I see from our fellow board members. I know that there's a couple other meetings tonight, one having to do with Campus Commons and the focus that group is looking at for the overpass or underpass for Wheelie Avenue when that development happens on the corner of Sunrise Valley and Wheelie. I also know there's some other clusters that are having their board meeting tonight. But it's really hard to get things scheduled with our jam-packed items that are going on. I just noticed, I think we have Karen Anton also joining us tonight as the district director from Hunters Woods. Okay, so some administrative things. I can't see it, but apparently on the screen you can see there is a button that you can raise your hand with. And please do that, or we'll try to see it visually as well. The chat room will be open, so those who would like to just keep their, get their comments in and talk, on that channel, that chat room will be open for use. So not to worry, we'll be monitoring that and answering questions from there. I have a big list of things I've got to go through. I'm being scripted. I'm not used to this. Okay. All right, so now I have a few things that I want to go over before we move into open. So Christina, or whomever's doing the slides, if you could move on. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about something that I know is, I don't want to call it an elephant in the room because it's really not, it's a pool, but it's in South Lake. And we have been working on the Lake Thoreau pool replacement renovation since last year when we had to close it at the end of the season because it wasn't really safe to use. So tonight's not focused on the Lake Thoreau pool itself. We all know that it's of great interest to the community. And we will be discussing it further at the board meeting on September 24th as part of our agenda that night. But just to review quickly, we started in August 2019. You can see we started off with the structural assessment that was presented. We followed that with a community session talking about why it had to be closed for the 2020 session. And in November, the board approved. They're the only ones that can approve funding and stuff to go happen. We did authorize a bucket of money to begin the planning and scoping phase in 2020. We followed that up in February with a kickoff held in person, no less, where we had a number of boards up that people could say what was most priority for them in that poll, what things did they like, what things did they want, et cetera, et cetera. From that information gathering session, we followed that up with working with Kimley Horn on contract to create concepts. And those concepts were put out there and presented to the community virtually in July. We gathered information in July and August, and then in August we had another community meeting held on those two concepts. This time we had to do it virtual. And from that session, what is next on the agenda is, as I said, the September 24th presentation to the Board of Directors. And we're going to go through those concepts, the whole board, not just those who were most interested in South Lakes, but what did we find? What's the current budget forecast? What's the impact on our reserves, and what actions might we take? Because we're now at key decision point number 1, which is for design, architecture, and engineering. And happy to answer more questions about it towards the end of the meeting. But I also want to make sure we don't lose sight of, I don't want to call it the little things, but the day-to-day things that, we all deal with in our live, work, play environment of Reston. The next topic I want to cover with you, the next set of slides, Mike, they disappeared on me. But I can tell you that what they are about is, now we went from micro, right, our own pool in our own neighborhood, to something a little bit bigger, which is the comprehensive plan activity that Fairfax County, our district supervisor, Walter Alcorn, is hosting the relook at some of our comprehensive plan. Every 5 years that's supposed to happen, and he has formed a group to look at that. And RA is participating in that group. We have both John Mooney, our director from North Point, and our secretary as our lead, with Larry Butler, who is our COO, attending those meetings and giving our voice there. In addition to that, we as a community have reached out to some of our partners like Reston Citizens Association, et cetera, and we host a monthly land use meeting where we talk about what's important to us in our and where do we fit in the picture and the kinds of things that we want. One piece that is part of this review is the creation of a document that we are working feverishly on that speaks to the principles that we hold dear to us in our community and the things that we believe ought to be considered in looking at zoning and planning changes. So that's happening now. And I think the next slide tells you where you can find all those documents and links. For those who are concerned that Reston Association has taken a different stand on the golf courses, we are not. We're appreciative of all the 800 some letters I've received thus far as a board member, but Water Alcorn has specifically said the golf courses are not part of this comprehensive plan review. RA has taken this, reinforced their position from 2018 and 2020. I think we started in 2016 actually, that we support that Reston is a 2 golf course community, that we treasure our open space. So I want to rest your fears about that. The last thing maybe it's not the last. Lake Thoreau algae. Another elephant in the room, not quite an elephant, but it's an important piece for us. Yes, Lake Thoreau is only one of 4 of our lakes. We heard the community loud and clear this summer with their concerns about algae and hydrilla in the lake. I think it's pretty cleared up by now. And that doesn't mean it won't show up again next year, but we're committed to doing a better job of communicating to the neighborhoods about that. We've set up some additional social medias, contacts, a specific web page, and we'll be having another community engagement meeting in October on that very topic to keep everybody informed. And staff has included in the 2021 budget some additional funds that they feel are necessary to address Lake Thoreau's requirements and needs from an environmental health perspective. So that's that piece. We have some opening in our volunteer corps. We have 2 professional category openings in design review board. Unfortunately, some of our folks moved out of the area, and you can't be on our DRB if you're not a resident of Reston. And so we are seeking architects, landscape architects, and design professionals. And we have 2 slots, and we'd love to fill them and get that group back up to full staffing. And I think that's it. We did start in June. We were delayed a little bit in our recreational facilities working group, which is really trying to pull together some design decision criteria about what do we have, need, want in terms of our amenities and facilities in Reston, and look to the future as we've seen our dynamics change and our demographics change in Reston. And that of course affects the budget and affects how we approach capital projects funding. Lake Thoreau pool happens to be the oldest pool we have. It's like 50 years old. So we're just beginning to see a lot of our infrastructure and our amenities really step up to the plate and say, hey, I need really serious attention. But that's just part of it. Some questions are, do we have volleyball courts? Somebody asked me that the other week. How can I get better access to the lakes? I don't live on a lake, and we all own the lakes. So that group is represented by members of each district, plus some members at large. Our Parks Recreation Advisory Committee Chair, John Pinkman, is on that group. And we're lucky because we have a guy who was on our fiscal committee until last night. He rolled off after 12 years, but he's on our recreational facilities working group, and that's Mark Steffel. And so we'll be working close in hand, and they're supposed to come back first quarter of next year with some counsel for us as we go forward. So, okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Hank, our CEO, because I think he had a few things he wanted to share, and then we'll get to the open session part and the raising of our hands.
Okay, thank you, Julie. And thank you all for joining us. I know several more will be joining us in a little bit. One of the things I was asked to do is kind of just bring you all up to speed of how we've been managing through this COVID and pandemic stressful period. And like many of you, I know in your jobs or in your lives, it has really thrown a bit of a curveball at us. And it's certainly been different for literally all of us and how we've been working and operating. The thing that I'm most proud of our staff, though, is the grass is still getting mowed. We're pruning trees, we're cleaning and repairing the trails. We've opened pools, may not have been when we wanted to, but we did open them. We've opened tennis courts and mini STEM. The staff has come up with some creative ways to bring a little bit of joy to the kids and families in our community, even though we weren't able to offer our summer camps. And we have worked on covenants and member services and paid the bills and a lot more, a lot of other things that have been going on. Staff from time to time shares with me some really positive notes. Let me just read a few of them to you because they were getting a lot of positive feedback for the efforts they've been doing. So I just think it's always important to kind of start a meeting with some positive input. And this came from the Nature Center. And this was a comment, a note to me that said, "Dear Hank, I just want to let you know that during our stay-at-home time, we did many weeks of themed posts that were greatly appreciated and followed by membership. One post that continues to run weekly is the Blooms of the Week to help people identify what they may be seeing on their increased time outdoors and on walks. Here's what one follower posted. Thank you for sharing. Through your photos, I'm learning more and more about what diverse native flowers are blooming in our community. We are so blessed to live in a community that cares so much for the environment." We weren't able to do in-person camps. So our staff and working with others throughout the country who were faced with the same challenges, came up with a camp in a box. And some of you may be aware of this. So our staff offered a resting camp in a box. And here's a note that one of our folks who led this got. It said, "Hi, Catherine. We got your box today and are loving it. I'm typing this from the waterfront of Lake Ann, where we're currently trying to find out whether turkey works as fish bait. My daughter's reaction to the arrival of the camp box today. Mom, it's like they made this box just for me," she said. "It's full of things I love. Huge thanks to you and your team." Also the pools, we got them open when we could, when the governor and the state would allow us to do it, and many people appreciated it. And here's a note from someone who said, "Just a note to let you know how much I appreciate the chance to swim at Reston's outdoors pools during the summer of 2020. The pools were safe, clean, healthy, friendly, and beautifully kept at all times. I couldn't always get a reservation to swim after work and was disappointed by that. But overall, the opportunity to swim was key to my sanity and physical well-being during this COVID emergency. I commend the staff for all their work." So a lot of positive things and a lot of things we've been learning. What we're hoping to get from all of you this evening, we're in our budgeting cycle. This is the second year of our 2-year cycle. So it's usually not as intense, but it is a good opportunity for us to get feedback from all of you as to the thing, and board members are watching, we're taking notes, and we have about 2 months to finish the budget for 2021. So please share what you think is important that needs to be included in this budget tonight. And we'll do the best that we can to get it in there. I think also I don't know if there's a slide that shows this, but I can kind of read through the list of capital projects that have been taking place in South Lakes District area. And to date, we have, I think it's coming up, there we go. We've completed the Ridge Height Pool Heat Retention Mat. We've worked on Lake Audubon Pool exterior and parking lot lights. We've partially, and as Julie mentioned, the Lake Thoreau Pool project has many facets to it, and we've gotten through basically the conceptual side of it. We've gotten through to understand what Fairfax County is requiring of us, and when we, restore it. And we also have gotten a pretty good handle on what it's going to cost. So now we're at a decision point that I think Julie's invited all of you to come to the board meeting next week, next Thursday, where we'll share even more in-depth information with the board. So that's been partially completed. We've also scheduled to be completed in the rest of the fall, the Newbridge bathroom shower tiles, the flooring, fixtures, and partitions, the Shadowwood pool interior, exterior, and parking lot lights, Lake Audubon spillway repairs and valves repairs and replacement, Lake Audubon pool interior lighting, and the Ridge Height pool electrical panel and parking lot lighting. And then some of the things have been deferred until 2022, and that's the running cedar ball field renovation. This may not all sound like glamorous things, but it's all important. And it totals up to about $700,000 we're investing in 2020. It's also, I think, important to note that later this year, RA will be coming out with a new online assessment billing payment platform that'll come out in December. It'll help smooth the 2021 assessment process. It will require you to do a little bit of work like you do when you sign up for other things online. So please stay tuned for that. Additionally, the Reston Association Elections Committee is conducting an informal online survey to determine if members' preference was to receive a voting ballot by mail or online. You can go to the www.reston.org, our website, and you can please share your opinion. What would you like to do? Would you like the ballots to continue to come through the mail, or would you like them to come online? Additionally, we have, I think Julie also mentioned this, we've gotten the feedback on when we had the hydrilla issue and the algae issues, and we've added on to our website a lakes and watershed page, which I think they've even updated today with some additional information. So please take a peek at that, and we're going to continue to add to it, make sure that we're getting as much information there that you need. And I know that Mike and the communications team are working for next year to even improve our website so we have a better two-way process for communications. So with that, let me just finish up with two more really, I thought these notes were lovely. The last one I really enjoyed very much. Let me just finish with two more. And this was about aquatics. You and the entire aquatics team deserve a heap of praise for providing us some paradise and respite this summer with the aerobics and swimming program. I've only attended at Lake Newport, but it has been one of the few moments to look forward to this summer. The lifeguarding staff, instructors, etc., deserve a lot of thanks for a great summer and all the smoothness and procedures, etc., to say nothing of providing us a safety throughout. And then my favorite that I've gotten, this came from tennis, and one of our instructors shared this with me. She said, I've had so many positive interactions with people during this tough time, but one really stuck out. Once we started tennis lessons, a mother called to sign up her son who has been struggling with not being able to be around his friends. She was so thankful that we were going to start a smaller group lessons. I signed her son up for our orange ball class. That's kind of the beginner class. And she called me late last week to thank me for a wonderful class and said that she hasn't seen her son smile and be this happy in a long time. Because of that, she's registered him for a lot of the fall classes. So we are doing a lot that we can under these challenging circumstances to provide the services and amenities that our community wants and to bring a little bit of joy during a tough time to all of our members. So I thank you for your continued support, and please this evening share with us what you'd like to see us add to the budget and other ways that we can improve our service to each and every one of you. So back to you, Julie.
Great, thank you. I was reminded we had volunteer openings on Environmental Advisory Committee, as well as the Multimodal Transportation Advisory Committee. And there are camp boxes for 55 plus too. I have not gotten my own, but I understand there are. So, and all of our board meetings these days are virtual. So when we say see you, next Thursday on the 24th, that is again via Zoom virtual. So let's go to the listening. What's missing? What are we doing good? What are we doing bad? What should we be thinking about that we haven't budgeted for or should be budgeting for? Please. I see a fair number of my fellow South Lakers out there, and like to hear from you. Mike, are you doing the hands? Or do you want me to call them folks?
Christina's doing hands, but if you see any, you're welcome to go ahead, Julie.
It looks like the first hand up is John Farrell.
Great. He was waiting for us to get to this point.
Well, there are 4 things I wanted to bring up to you. Can you hear me, Madam President?
Yes, yes, I can, John. Thank you. Please. Here.
One, I wanted to congratulate, and I see he's online, and I'd say this even if he wasn't joining us, is Cam Adams has made a really positive impression in our cluster. He and Megan came by and walked our cluster like within the first couple of weeks of joining. He's been very helpful. We had some matters that had to be addressed in short order, and he was able to turn around an application for us very, very quickly.
Great.
One of those, that application though impacted trees. The process we have to go through to take care of trees is burdensome and really difficult, particularly when we're dealing with dead trees and when we're dealing with trees that pose a threat to homes and parking lots. And I mean, we're in our cluster's 40 years old. And so the white pines have gotten to be 70 and 80 feet tall.
Yeah.
And as anybody has spent any time looking at these, white pines typically don't last
No,
50, 40 years.
yeah.
And when they fall down, they're heavy and they can kill people. And we've got some that are hard by, I mean, literally next to people's houses. And they need to be taken out for safety purposes. If they don't fall in the house, they're going to fall in the parking lot. And these kind of considerations need to be brought higher in the analysis, because we shouldn't have to go through a full panel, nor should we have to hire a certified arborist to deal with what is an obvious common sense safety problem. So I hope the board will re-examine that standard and change it. The other thing I really want the board to take a hard look at is repealing the term limits. The term limits were adopted in reaction to one unhappy neighbor who didn't like the DRB approval of the rebuild of the house next door. But as you're experiencing with the inability to fill the 2 professional slots on the DRB, you know, the term limits get in the way of having the expertise that we need on the DRB. Those slots should not be converted to something other than a professional position. People who don't have the professional qualifications should not be filling those slots. But if we got rid of the term limits, we could have the benefit of the institutional knowledge of those persons.
John, are you referring to term limits only for DRB?
I think term limits are a bad idea in all circumstances. I fight them when people want to do that for the legislature. I think our governor ought to be able to run for re-election and let that
I
happen.
could re-up next April. I wouldn't have to have my term limit of 6 years.
That's exactly right. You know, Julie, I mean, if you've done a job and you want to continue and the people of South Lakes want you to continue, then, you know, we ought to be able to have that choice.
Yeah.
So, you know, but those term limits are set in the documents. The term limits for DRB, that's a board policy, and
Yeah.
that the board can change that whenever it wants.
Yeah.
The last point I want to inquire is, are the bird walks going to resume anytime soon? They were terminated in the spring. It's an outside activity.
Right. I didn't realize they had been, but we can check that with you.
I mean, I don't understand why they were terminated, but B, you're outside,
Yeah.
we can wear masks, and it tends to be 15, maximum 20 people, maybe 25, and it's stretched out over a quarter mile of trail. So I would hope that they could be reestablished.
Yeah,
Reactivated.
and the major migration of the birds, I think, was this week, wasn't it?
Well, it'll be from now until Thanksgiving. That's right.
Yeah. So
So
good. time
thank
to
you
do
for your
that.
time.
Thank you, John.
I'll check on the bird walks, Julie, and get back.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if that was Claudia or whom, but that would be good. And also, we were fine on our professional staffing until one person sold their house and moved out of the area, and another person had some family obligations come up. So, but we've got some really great people on the DRB now too, and we'll continue to seek that. And I don't think anyone disagrees with you that we need those architects that have the professional capabilities. Is Val next?
I am. Can you hear me, Julie?
Certainly can, Val. How are you?
Great. I'm good. Thanks for the session tonight. And the reason I'm here, my top concern, as you might be aware, is the Lake Thoreau pool.
Mhm.
And Hank, thanks for sharing the input. Like some of the folks using some of the pools during this time was helped my sanity. And I heard from a neighbor who attended the fiscal committee meeting earlier this week.
Last
That
night.
it sounded like there was a potential for the funding to be delayed, or Fairfax County was thinking it could be a recreational site or something instead of a pool. Anyway, my concern, I'm very concerned about that. I don't want the project to be delayed. I want it to keep moving. It's going at a good pace now. And I just wanted to ask if the pool is the budget for the pool going to be approved for 2021?
Yeah, well, that's why the next key decision point, and I don't think we have that process diagram tonight, but we will, it is part of the board packet for next Thursday, and it'll be available to the public come Friday. But our next key decision point on the pool, which the full board has to look at, is, the next step, and that's going to require money. And so how do you pay for such, project?
Right, but I mean, that was part of the consideration all along, so.
Well, I don't know that we knew exactly how much, it was going to be, so that's why we did the first phase, was to get the conceptual and see what might those things run in terms of costs. And
Right, and
learning more about the site in terms of the ADA and the Disabilities Act, and some of the stormwater management, environmental things that we've had to deal with that weren't there 50 years ago. So we are going to cover this in great length. Either we can talk about it in a little bit. We exhaust all the other questions, or please do chime in on, zoom in on next Thursday night as well.
Well, I mean, I think you've heard from me and neighbors and all kinds of people that use the pool that we want to keep it. It sounded like there was discussion about whether the project is worth the cost. If there's an issue with the cost, I would suggest let's get another estimate instead of just going with this one company. We want a pool. We just want a simple pool, nothing fancy. And I know, Hank, you've heard that loud and clear. I'm just here to say this loud and clear again. We want to keep the pool. The pool must go on. Okay.
The concept one, which is what the community leaned towards, is as close to what you have today as probably possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I know you're a devoted lap swimmer, as I recall.
I am. I'm just a devoted pool lover, lap swimmer, hot tub user. Yeah, everything pool person.
Julie, I believe we've got a question for Kay Chadwick.
Okay.
So I have not been aware of the meetings. I am in Winterport Cluster, which is pretty close to the pool. I don't know how you do your communications, but it's failing in this sense, in that I am a co-owner of another property in Reston, but the only communications I've received via email was a questionnaire about the pool, but I never even was made aware of the fact that the pools elsewhere were open. My personal property value will decline significantly if the pool is not reopened, as a proximity, walking distance to a pool is a large part of the value of this property. So I am concerned, and I'm concerned that that things are just progressing. And I'm not sure how well the affected individuals are being kept abreast of what's going on.
Well, that's part of why we do these listening sessions. And
So the only way I found out about this listening session was someone posted on Facebook. So
Yeah.
I didn't get any information from Reston saying there's a listening session tonight. This is the first time I've been aware of anything. And I've had this concern with Reston since I've moved here.
okay, can I try to answer your question a little bit? Besides you obviously coming to our Reston Association website, part of our social media outreach is I see things on LinkedIn from Reston Association that are pushed out. I see things on the Facebook page that are pushed out. On every Friday, there is an RA news blast that you can subscribe to. So you get that every Friday. We can't automatically subscribe you to it. You do have to opt in. I don't know, Mike, can you put in the chat room where they might, sometime where they might go to opt in?
Sure, absolutely, Julie. I'll type that right now, but basically you just go to www.reston.org, which is our homepage, scroll to the very bottom of the page, and it will say subscribe to RA News. You simply put in your email address and hit submit, and that's all you need to do. And then the next following Friday, you'll start to receive that in your email inbox, usually by 8 a.m. on Friday morning.
And so that's really a good site. I'm sorry that we haven't had as much two-way communication with you, but give us a chance to improve that. If you'll reach out to us, we'll be able to reach out to you.
Okay, and I think that what has happened is an error that has not been corrected from when I first moved, because I'm co-listed on another property.
Okay.
So I don't seem to have access, and I admit that I haven't pursued it.
Okay.
But on the other hand, there's been no effort, even though, like I said, I believe I get a bill, which I paid, but other than that, there's been no outreach. So
I think on your bill, when you get your assessment, you can choose to receive things electronically as well. But Mike, put in the chat room also the member services phone number so that people have that they know they can call and also talk to somebody live to help get you.
So I appreciate that. What I will say is that, based on the fact that there's 29 participants in this meeting, and certainly a significant more that are in the community, there perhaps could be some greater outreach. So if the channels that are open are not being communicated, or I don't know, I'm not sure, aside from my personal experience, how that could happen, but it would seem that this might be a time to reach out to the general group as opposed to this very small percentage of people.
Okay, keep that in mind. Val, aren't you in Winter Third Cluster as well? Sorry, I think Val is. And they were very active. That cluster was active in the last fall and early this year on the pool. So, but you will have my email address as well and my phone number. So please do use those.
And yes, Julie, I was still muted. I am in Winterport as well.
So maybe Ms. Chadwick can connect with you, Val, with your cluster board.
So,
Yeah, sure. I mean,
appreciate that. What I guess what I'm trying to convey is that this seems like it's a very small group relative to the number of people in this area. Just my opinion.
Yeah,
But the pool is a big deal.
Right.
And certainly we have concerns, but a bigger concern may be, in fact, this development that, you know, I saw a flyer at one point. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I heard you mention it in passing in terms of agenda for the meeting. But I guess I don't even have anything to ask about since I don't know any more about it.
sure. Well, I'd be more than happy to, you know, meet you on the trail in between my house and your house and have a walkabout and talk, as well as we've got my phone number in a moment or two, and like to see if there's some other comments from some other members.
Sure.
Did I see a hand up by Jerry Valoy?
Can you hear? Oh, there you go. Now you can hear me.
Yeah. Hello, Jerry.
I just, as always, want to just say thank you, Reston Association, for all the great work you do and for the great staff that you have. That you do wonderful work in our community. And Julie, thank you for your work as the board president and for the South Lakes District as well. Just a couple of things that I wanted to mention. I know during the last, since I was a member of the last Reston Master Plan Task Force for 6 years or whatever it was, and we started this effort again, how important it was to everybody then who raised their hand and said, I support the development and the wonderful plan that we've put together, but we all hope that the infrastructure necessary to support that development is also provided, and that there is a way to make sure that the infrastructure that's necessary to support that that growth and that development becomes a reality as well. So all I ask is that during this new Reston Master Plan Task Force effort, that that Larry, who's the member representing the Reston Association, and bring up and always keep in mind the infrastructure that's always necessary to support development, so that it doesn't have deleterious effects upon our community. And that's so important. And it's also important that even for the last Reston Master Plan Task Force, as development proceeds, that we keep pushing to understand and to make sure that the infrastructure that was necessary to support that development that was planned in the past is also accommodated and tracked and pushed to make sure that the infrastructure stays in line with the development in our community. And just a second thought that I had, all this new growth and development within Reston, of course, and this has just been a constant reminder for me, will have impacts upon the Reston Association, financial impacts, environmental impacts, etc. And that I think it's absolutely critical for the Reston Association, if possible, to gain the supervisor support in making sure that all new development, especially around Wheelie and Herndon Monroe, that the developers of that new growth and development and that the Reston Association does its best to entice and excite developers to make their properties become part of the Reston Association, because there will be financial and environmental impacts of all that development and growth. Those are just a couple of general things. I know it's not necessarily relevant to specifics within South Lake, but in other ways it is
It
because
is. I mean, we're,
there's development there as well.
yeah, I think one of the unique things about our district is the fact, you know, Sunrise Valley is our delimiter, right? And on one side of Sunrise, you have development, you have the transit station authority, right? And development and developers and whatever. There's very little housing between Sunrise Valley and the toll road.
Yeah.
Well, there's a little bit, but on the other side is residential, like what's there for near our Upper Lakes with, like, I think it's Beacon Place, Winterthur. I mean, we have all these clusters
Right.
and townhomes and whatever on the other side of Sunrise Valley that are impacted by what
Yeah.
happens across the street.
And we'll also see things like Campus Commons be developed as well.
Right, and
On
that's
our side of it.
thousands of people
Yep.
supposed to come in there.
Yeah.
The Soapstone Connector, you know, is moving along per the county to go across the toll road. But where does that dump people? You know?
Yeah. And
dump them on
all that
the
depends upon fiscal resources to support that development, people, time,
Mhm.
and, you know, just, I think it's just important to keep tracking
Yeah.
those.
That's why I was
that
so glad that we
infrastructure that's
do
necessary.
have a seat at the table with John Mooney, and who's been tracking the development on our board for a number of years, and Larry Butler, who of course, you know, has been here and dealt with county development forever and ever. As well as voices from the community, like I mentioned, whether it's Reston Community Citizens Association or CPR, Coalition for a Planned Reston. So there's a number of groups that RA is hosting once a month, a community land use meeting. And we talk about making sure that our concerns, and not just, you know, Reston Association, but the greater, you know, impact for us all. And I'm so pleased that the principal there's a document being developed on principles, you know, kind of like the charter, and it includes things like biophilic, the importance of open space, green buildings, keeping current with, you know, technology, but respecting the history and integrity and the character of our neighborhoods. You know, we're not seeking to put urban centers in the middle of Reston Association property. You know, there's a place for that, time for that. But back to your point, Jerry, if you're going to bring development, you got to bring a way for us to live and work within what you've brought.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Julie, as we're waiting for more hands to go up, I'd like to read some of the chat comments. that
Yes,
we're
please.
getting.
I'm sorry. Yes.
No problem. So there's a message from Leslie C. Can we get information about utilization of the pool as part of this decision process? Do we need all the pools that we have? We live in South Lakes near Ridge Heights, and it seems to be more used than Lake Thoreau, but still modestly used in a quote unquote normal summer. I'm very concerned about taking on more debt to remake a pool unless there are capacity issues. So that was one question. Mike A shared a comment. I strongly vote for the 2021 budget to fully fund Lake Thoreau project per the published schedule. No delay. Val Aaron added, we already had the conversation, and this is tying back to utilization. We already had the conversation and discussion with the community about usage. Lake Thoreau is highly used, highly desired to keep the pool. Leslie C followed up that comment with, I know you want to keep it, Val. What is the total utilization of the pools in South Lakes? What percentage? I have a question. I don't know, Julie, whether you or Hank want to answer that question about utilization at this point.
Well, I don't know the specific numbers, but we have been looking. One of the things we did in the last couple of years was we added WebTrack. We added the ability to electronically capture, now you got to get that nice little pass that has your picture and whatever. But we can now track electronically rather than paper and pencil who's using our pools, and how old are they, what sex are they, what age are they. And so, yes, we have more data now than we've ever had that we can look at what is the utilization of the pools. And that's something that is being looked at both by our treasurer and fiscal committee as part of our budget process, as well as our recreational facilities working group that I mentioned that was formed. So we do have some of that data. I don't know that we have it tonight, but we can make sure that that's part of board communications packet. I think we could probably, I don't want to promise, but I'll see if we can't have that as part of next Thursday night's analysis. But I would caution people when we look at those utilization numbers, when Glade Pool was renovated and all those great features were added, now more people went to that pool because it had something another pool didn't have. And some pools by nature, are perhaps more shaded and people want more sun, or some have better diving facilities than others. So some of that, you can look at just in terms of how many people go and how much does it cost you to run that pool. But I don't remember who talked about it earlier, but part of the way that Reston was designed was so that everybody could, in theory, walk, bike to a neighborhood pool. Now, is that still something that the community at large feels is important relative to the cost of operating, those pools? And so when people say, well, what would be an alternative use, or what might be the opportunity costs, and one of the things that we came kind of right up against this year, which we really hadn't had that before, we typically have paid for things as we went along. We didn't incur debt. And we've been saving money, but were we able to look that far out into the future to say, oh, when you go to do this renovation or this facility update, did you plan on 3 times the amount or 2 times the amount in your budget? And if not, well, how do you address that? And those are some of the things we're going to look at next Thursday night. We've got some slides from the capital projects team. So we have to look at that. And we also decided last night that we need to think about how we do approach debt and loans and whatever. How do we fund that? So we're in the process of trying to set up a discussion meeting amongst the board directors on that topic.
Julie, I'm going to read a couple more comments related to the same topic.
Then I see Ms. Badley has her hand up too, so.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and take the question and we can come back to these.
Oh, hi. All right, thank you. So I was on the fiscal committee call listening last night and had a couple of comments and then a couple of questions about it. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Liz Badley. I'm at Silentwood Lane in South Reston. And for 10 years, I worked at the Reston Association's Central Services facility. I left 2 years ago. So I was part of several reserve studies when we were looking at capital, replacing things. And so the reserve studies would come in. And I remember specifically working with Brian Murphy about how residents and mentioning residents don't want to replace like for like. And while a reserve study does a great job of giving you kind of a like for like cost, residents are really looking when a renovation happens, they're looking for an upgrade. And I think that, you know, we all kind of feel that way when we see something, you know, get renovated, we want it to be a little bit better than it was, which is totally normal and totally makes sense. But it seemed like every single time we were coming up for new things, it was a scramble because nobody had planned 10, 20 years down the line for that upgrade. They had really only planned that like for like. So that's kind of like, I really wanted to make that comment last night because everybody was saying, you know, and Larry said it last night. Well, you know, this is the first time we've come up with it at the scale that we've come up with it.
Yeah.
This
We
is
managed the previous ones. This one's a really big one.
Exactly. But the previous ones we would scramble to find the money.
Yeah.
It's like, well, we want to do this upgrade. Okay, so can we like not buy a truck this year? Can we get 2 trucks 2 more years or whatever?
Right.
So with that, you know, it makes sense. I'm personally for redoing Lake Thoreau. Like I asked a question specifically to the aquatic staff and they agreed with me. They're like, yeah, it would be way easier if we did this, but residents have said blah, blah. Anyway, it wasn't part of the surveys. Just have a, you know, that's my pool. So I see the usage anyway. I jumped into this meeting right when communications was being discussed. And I have both a question and a comment. So the first question is, why are we spending so much? I see sponsored posts every day on Facebook from the Reston Association. And I have Reston Association set in my settings to where I see their posts first.
Mm.
I'm constantly seeing sponsored, which is a waste of resources. And then it is absolutely a waste of resources because if you're using, so first off, Facebook's targeted marketing has a huge flaw in it and it targets people who have already liked your page. Instead, if you can teach the people of Reston, hey, star us, you know, do little marketing videos that say star us, maybe even a on the ground campaign with residents, you know, like I just hate that we're wasting money. And then the second thing was there was a survey that was posted on Facebook and then sponsored that was an open 2-question survey. And while the survey questions were phenomenal, I get the data that they wanted to collect. There was no address verification type of question in the survey. A third question of which shopping center exists in Reston or which pool is a Reston pool or which lake is a Reston lake could have weeded out the 93 responses from out of Reston that I can confirm answered the survey after the person who responded to my question that said, hey, you might want to change this survey and get an address verification. An employee responded to me, it doesn't have to be a scientific survey. We just want to know what the residents feel about this. And I said, I understand your intent on this.
Hmm.
Your intent does not work if this is a public survey and you're putting it out to everyone. And they said, well, it doesn't have to, the response was, it doesn't have to be a scientific. I said, it's a waste of resources because the survey is not going to give you the information that you want. And then there was another rebuttal. So I just decided to share it on my public page and try to get as many non-Reston people or as many friends that I could to answer and to reply where they live. And
Interesting.
you know, it's a waste of resources. Whoever's running the social media doesn't know how to do it. They have no clue how to get engagement. I have multiple posts where the engagement is low. The biophilic community that you brought up earlier, great. It's been mentioned. It was mentioned in March, and I've heard it mentioned multiple times on board meetings. It was mentioned on social media once in March, once in April, and once in June. And of the number of people, it has a 0.03% engagement on their posts.
Yeah, it sounds like, Liz, we should get you together with Mike Leone, our Director of Communications, and his team, and see if the two of you can figure out some better answers.
Sure, I would be more than happy to submit a bid on my social media strategy, like consulting. More than happy, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm more than happy to help. Have always been willing to help. But it just, it's very, very upsetting, the waste. And, I get that you can't automatically opt people into the newsletter, but you guys forget every time that we all pay our assessment, and you can have a checkbox that says, check here to opt out of our news, not check here to opt in. Make it a default when you pay online that you are opted into communications. Make it a default when we pay our assessment that we get our pool passes. I don't know if you
Okay,
really,
those are some good points and some good ideas. I think that we should take that to heart.
Thank you very much. But the board, I know you guys are doing a great job. And then one other question, I guess, is I have received a phone call from a market research company about the golf course.
Yeah, I'm just hearing about that, the people are getting phone calls.
Yeah. Is RA paying for that?
That has got nothing to do with us, not even close. We have stated emphatically, multiple times, we reaffirmed, we support a 2 golf course community that supports open space. Rescue Reston, community advocate, is working hard to track down a bit more of that information about what's going on. I would suggest you go to their website. I saw that they posted something today about that. And Walter Alcorn, our district supervisor, is aware as well that our members in our community are receiving these phone call surveys and whatever. And so, yes, it's.
I responded to them. I was trying to figure out who was paying for it.
Yeah,
they said like throughout the entire survey, I kept asking questions to try to figure out who was paying for it.
Yeah.
But it seemed like they said the words that the park would be run by the park authority. So I was wondering maybe Fairfax County is paying for it. I have no idea, but
there's been discussion by, if you're talking about Hidden Creek Country Club.
I think that's the golf course they were talking about.
Right. There has been discussions by the owner about in their plan, which, right now they have no option of, anything they would put forth as a development plan that includes housing is dead on arrival with the county due to our comprehensive plan. But they have, of course, talked in terms of their, I'll call it marketing, their communications plan, that they would donate, they could possibly donate land that was not buildable, right?
Gotcha.
To the county's park authority or, some other worthy recipient of that open space. But yes, I understand the survey that's being done does not allow you to say things like not interested or no. That isn't, really the way that,
Oh, don't worry. I told them, oh yeah, I totally love open space and mixed use stuff. Oh, well, would you support this? Absolutely not. So
and they probably weren't interested in continuing the discussion.
nope. They asked me like 10 more questions and they're like, does that make you change your mind? I was like, absolutely not. I was like, I love all those things, but I still don't want that golf course redeveloped. So
that's right. Neither of them. I do not wish.
Yeah, neither one. So thank you. Thank you guys for your hard work. I'm sorry I'm always complaining. Hey, Mike, I will put my my email in the chat. If you want to reach out to me, I'm more than happy to help you with your social media.
Thank you so much. I know Leslie had her hand up. I can see that.
Do you hear me?
Barely.
Barely.
I know, and I know you don't have a soft voice.
Let's see if it's my volume. Is that better?
There you go.
Yes.
There you go.
My question is actually pretty simple, and it might have already been covered, but we were talking a little bit beforehand about the soapstone connector. And I'm wondering if there's been any traffic density study anticipated with the Soapstone connector being put in to traffic on Soapstone itself.
I do not know the specifics on that one. It's been in the making for as long as it was supposed to be put in place when the metro was built, I think. So I don't remember exactly. I know our multimodal advisory committee folks would know that. If Larry Butler was not on vacation, our COO, he could answer that question for us easily.
Well, I think it's probably in negotiation between the Planning Commission, Fairfax County Planning Commission, you know,
And
Walter and VDOT.
Department of Transportation. I mean, it has nothing to do with us in the sense of other than we're impacted.
Right,
Is it-
exactly.
It's really over the TSA.
So just
So-
to find out when
Unless Bob Between might have some, Bob, I don't know, do you have any further insight than what we've shared?
The latest from VDOT, Tom Bashadny and FCDOT is that the project is estimated to cost $180 million. There is, by last word, all of the money to fund the project has been found. But there is not going to be any action at this point for the next several years. I think 2025 is the start of engineering work, and it is expected to be completed by 2029. And the question you asked about traffic study, yes, it has to, in order for it to be funded, it had to have a traffic study. And if you get on FCDOT's, Fairfax County Department of Transportation's website, you can find the study.
Well, Leslie C is mentioning that it was done about 11 years ago, but if we're saying that construction is not going to begin until 2025, obviously traffic density is going to increase between that period and this period. So I'm just wondering who I pose a query to about doing that again.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Fairfax County.
It is.
Yep.
And VDOT and Water Horns, the district supervisor, you know, and I think Walter has a person who specializes and focuses on the transportation issues on his staff.
I will go to that person. Thank you.
I see a comment from Ms. Chadwick with regard to, I'm assuming you mean the RA assessment and Metro. They actually have nothing to do with one another. What you pay for Fairfax County taxes or Virginia taxes are completely separate from Reston Association's assessment for our facilities. Yes, you're right. You would think that it would. Now when they did the first impact study on traffic, they did assume some metro numbers. I don't know how far down the path, as we said, it was many, many years ago, but I know there's sources of data on that. And it was just recently that they finally moved the project a bit forward off kind of the shelf and okay, yeah, we're gonna start looking at it more seriously. The piece I would personally like to see done sooner than later is that pedestrian over wheelie where the W&O trail is. I think that's, you know, where the new fire station's being built. You know, I think the W&O trail there where you've just got to be so cognizant of both whether you're in a car or you're on a bike or you're walking, if you want to cross wheelie at that point. That's been in the works for forever, as long as I can remember. So that's a personal beef. Okay, we have talked a lot about a number of things. I mentioned the recreational facilities working group. And let me just speak about that for a little bit more, because they will be, over the next number of months, there'll be activities for outreach, focus groups, whatever, as they gather more data. But that group was formed to evaluate the current inventory, condition, and usage of recreation facilities and the long-term operational maintenance and capital costs for such facilities. One of the things that the board of directors has struggled over the years that I've been on the board is, how do you make those decisions about major funding and whether that's the appropriate use of our dollars. So we've asked this group to help formulate some of those decision criteria by which to measure something, whether it's, it shouldn't just be cost, or, perhaps, usage per pool. Is there equity in terms of accessibility for both our members, whether or not it's close proximity, or Americans with disabilities, all sorts of, things like that. And, we try to also look at, not everybody is an active runner or active swimmer or tennis, player. We found that pickleball, for example, is growing in desirability among our neighborhood. And we did fund some conversion of tennis courts this past year. They happened to be in North Point. I was hoping I could get support and enthusiasm to maybe put some pickleball courts down at Barton Hill, which would be South Lakes. The south side of Reston would also have pickleball. So I haven't given up on that idea, but it is a growing sport. So how do you address that? Or do we need to think more in terms of having more, say, shuffleboard or bocce ball, or something a little bit less, physically active? We're converting what had been a ball field over behind Hunter's Woods Shopping Center. There's a ball field there that the community, the Hunter's Woods community, along with folks from RA staff and whatever, are looking at, okay, how do we maybe make that into a space that's more usable by folks? It was too far away as a ball field for people to carry all their equipment to get there and actually use it. The Reston Sports Council, which was formed about, I think I can say, a year and a half ago. I'm pretty sure it was over a year and a half ago. And that came out of our Parks Recreation Advisory Committee to form this Reston Sports Council, and they're very active as well, looking at how do you match up what our teams, what our members want, with what we have available to us in spaces. So we've got that. We had a lot of interest in, when we had the Lakes, Boats, Docks Working Group, I can never say that one fast, in how do we give more optimization to those who don't live on a lake but have hand carry boats and they want to get out on the lake, learn how to paddleboard, learn how to kayak. Certainly you can get there from Lake Audubon, and there's a dock at Lake Newport where you can do that. Same thing for Lake Anne. It's a little harder over at Lake Thoreau. The easy access is, of course, off of South Lakes, but no parking there and whatever. But so, those are the kinds of things that we're looking at. As I mentioned earlier, somebody said to me, well, we don't have any volleyball courts. What about volleyball courts? I don't know. What about volleyball courts? So we look at that. We are working, Ms. Chadwick, there is going to be a new RA website. We know the one we have or had, it kind of failed, and we had to put in a temporary one. So that's, right up there in priorities that Hank, our CEO, and Mike Leone are working on for this coming, I'd say it's probably going to be the next 6 to 9 months, but they also anticipate, doing an outreach for getting community input about, this is a plug-in for you, Liz, for thoughts on what we might need or want on that website, right? Changes there, because we know it's a little cumbersome, as someone has said. We created a new strategic plan that became effective this year in 2020, will go to 2023. And thanks to Hank's guidance and his professional experience working with other nonprofits, I think the document is a really strong document, and one that has more than just, a top level word. It has actions, it has measurements, so it's much more robust for us to strive for. And we're measuring Hank on how we do against that strategic plan he helped us on. So he's got a challenge. Liz, you raised your hand.
I did, thank you. I actually had a question or a suggestion for the website that would be actually pretty easy, even as simple as our website is right now. So I've been trying to participate more and listen in on meetings, I get involved and be a pain in Julie's bottom. I'm just kidding. I have copied everything from the rec track calendar into my own Google Calendar, but I find it incredibly hard to stay on top of the calendar notifications because there's no little button at the bottom that says copy to my Gmail or copy to my Outlook. And that could be easily solved by not using the rec track calendar. You can literally just put it in a GCal for free and paste the code that Google gives you onto the webpage that we already have. So if that could be an update that happens right away, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I feel your pain on that one. I have to copy everything. My calendar is actually on a IBM Lotus Notes thing, and I can't do it. And when I did forward out the invite.ics that was attached to the invite, it apparently told everybody the meeting was a half an hour. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and Google can really solve the problem. Any calendar app would solve the problem, or any I don't know. It's just I really I was actually against RecTrack and WebTrack from the beginning.
Got some positive things and it's got some negatives.
It is fantastic for class management, and it is fantastic because the county uses it for class management and the town of Herndon uses it for class management, but it's really difficult for point of sale. A great point actually is I went and redid my pool ops at the Reston Association and they couldn't figure out how to charge me. So I got my pool ops for free.
There you
They
go.
figure out the point of sale right
You're
there.
advising everyone to go into the office and be socially distant and re-up their pool passes so that.
Oh, no, this was my pool operator so that I can run a pool. I
got
run a pool in Herndon. So, I mean, I didn't this year because of COVID, but I have a swim team at a little pool in Herndon, but I like to keep my certifications current, and they couldn't, she couldn't figure out how to charge me because of the back end of, RecTrack, the back end of WebTrack. So it's just, and with the assessment, I know it was an issue with the assessments. So if there could just be a calendar that I can just click and add, that's such a simple fix and it would be amazing. And I know you would get a lot more participation if on your Facebook, there was literally a link to add this to your calendar, or maybe use Facebook events and double everything instead of links, double everything into Facebook events with the Zoom links and invite people. That's another simple way to do it.
We took your suggestion and we put that on Mike Leone's list.
Well, I'm excited to start getting invites to everything. Otherwise, I'll start doing it and I'll just bill RA. Just kidding. Thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome. Are there any other thoughts that people would like to share, or topics you'd like us to try to circle back with you on. I'm taking this as you're about done talking to me. Mr. Valoy, was that a yes? Like, yes, you're right, Julie, we're done talking to you and Hank and Cam and
Just
anybody?
a short comment. I notice as I walk around Lake Audubon that the lake people and Bill Peterson and his people have been doing great work and tagging a lot of the boats that have
Oh, the dilapidated.
really deteriorated,
Yeah.
and I thank them for that. And I just hope that the people who get those yellow tags take action to do whatever they need to do to get their boats back into shape. Because there are really, you know, as I go around, it seems like about 1 out of every 5 or 6 boats has got a yellow tag on it. So good work on doing that, and let's hope that they respond.
Okay. I'm actually going to put Cam on the spot here. I see him here and we've got just a few minutes left. And I know a lot of the folks that are on this call tonight do live in clusters. And I want to truly welcome, as John Farrell had said, Cam joined us in early June. And he's just been this breath of fresh air in outreach and ideas. He and Megan and reaching out to the clusters. I know, Cam, you're working with the clusters to get everybody's standards up to snuff and electronic, but is there anything you like to share tonight?
Thank you, Julie, for putting me on the spot. I appreciate it. I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that, you know, my goal in terms of making sure that cluster outreach is a focal point of the department is to ensure that clusters know that our goal is to provide the best service possible while supporting the cluster and their members. And so one of our goals, Megan and I have worked really, really hard in terms of what John mentioned earlier, which is a show and tell, which is walking around your cluster with us, showing us your problems, or showing us your community, what's going on in it, and also telling us your problems and how we can better help and assist and serve you all as members. And so if you all are in clusters, if you have a cluster board, please do communicate with your cluster board, communicate with us in the covenants department, because that's something that we would really, really enjoy doing. I'm very new to Reston. As Julie mentioned, I just started in June, and I come from a very different environment from Alexandria, which is completely of the polar opposite of Reston. And so I'm learning all of the nuances and all of the great, fantastic things that are in Reston. And so walking your cluster is something that I would really enjoy doing and getting to know each and every one of you if it's possible. I know that sounds very, very optimistic in terms of 20,000 homes and 60,000 people, but face-to-face conversations is always my way of making sure that members know that we're supporting them in the best light. So if it's an opportunity, please be sure to reach out to us, and I'll put my email address in the chat box.
Great.
Julie, we've got a comment from Leslie. Any thoughts about getting one or more of the fishing filament recycle receptacles?
You know, I just heard about that. It's funny. I don't remember how I heard about fishing line receptacles, but I did. Hank, do you remember where that came from? Was EAC looking at it? Was it something Friends of Reston?
Yeah, I remember it too. I remember it too. I'm making a note of it. We'll do our best to get it done.
I know that there's discussion with the Friends of Reston, which is our nonprofit, about an idea came through RA staff about tennis ball recycling. You know, there is an organization that will take tennis balls and recycle them. And so they're looking, we're looking into, is that something we can do and provide a way for people to get rid of their old tennis balls and put them, instead of in a landfill somewhere, put them back into reuse.
Yeah, Julie, I don't know if these things, I mean, I've seen them at state parks in Virginia, where they're lakes and a lot of fishing. So, I mean, I'm all for recycling. I don't really actually care if fishing line filament gets recycled or not. I
Right.
do care that it not lay on the side of the lake, so that dogs that have a tendency to eat things they're not supposed to eat, eat it, or it gets, you know, it fouls a bird or something like that. So, and I think maybe if we had those, if we had those little recycle things, they actually look like a piece of PVC with a hole in it. I mean, they're really not. They're nothing special about it, except that I think it reminds anglers to not leave their stuff around.
Yeah, and we do have places where specifically, you know, we know folks like to go fish. Right? Yeah. So, but as I said,
on that strip, there's not. Well, I guess that's not true. There is a trash can between the.
Yeah, but
I mean, I don't know why people leave their stuff around, but
if
whatever
it's
we could
something
do.
that is recognizable, like you say, in county parks or national parks, and you know, the fishermen know what it is. So, you know, and I just don't remember, but it did come across our airways in the last 2 weeks.
Leslie, I'll talk to the central services guys. I think we can make them out of some.
Yeah, you can. I remember
you're talking about.
Oh, is that right? Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
And how to make them.
I think we can make it and get some of those up. So let me talk to central services.
Maybe it was the Boy Scout project.
Oh, it could be. Yeah, and just make a sign.
There's a Girl Scout project that just got put into Lake Thoreau for a new turtle, you know, sunning platform. And so that just got put in. And it might have been the Boy Scouts. There was a Boy Scout team that was doing something as well.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, maybe that's where I heard it.
We, if I can just share an idea we also had from Mike A. Can tennis ball recycling generate non-membership revenue? I have a suspicion that's non-assessment revenue, but essentially, is it a revenue opportunity, recycling of tennis balls?
The nonprofit, this, as I said, was discussed at Friends Reston the other night, and it's we would collect the balls and send them off to this nonprofit. That question was asked by one of the Friends of Reston directors, whether or not there would be any money in it for us, you know, but I doubt it. But certainly it was a question that was asked. I don't know what we do with them. I only know of a nonprofit that collects the balls and does something with them. So, but not bad. We're always looking for ideas on non-assessment revenue. Certainly this year with the pandemic, our non-assessment revenue stream, which we do rely on to help offset member assessments, was significantly impacted. I don't recall about how much. Hank probably knows that number, but I know it wasn't insignificant. Not too much we could do about it in that regard. So,
Julie, this is Karen. I don't know how to raise my hand because I think I'm a co-host, but
that's all right. I see you.
I just wanted to say.
Yeah,
okay, good. I just wanted to say, as a tennis player, I know that at pre-COVID anyway, members of the tennis community would volunteer to collect balls to recycle. I really don't know what they did with them, but they sent them somewhere. I know they didn't get any money in return, but there is a method for doing that. I don't think it would generate any non-assessment revenue.
Yeah, this idea on the ball recycling came from Rob Tucker, our RA staff person who leads our tennis team. So yeah, Karen, it did come from them and was thought that maybe that was something very cool.
So it has been done in the tennis community, I know.
Yeah, good. I know we promised to end somewhere around 8:30. I'm willing to keep going, but I also want to be respectful of, your evenings. Are there any other, I see Liz has her hand up again. So Liz, you have something to share?
Yes. So I just put it in the chat box. And, just because this is the Girl Scout, Boy Scout project made me think. I was just part of a national working group for greenschoolyardsamerica.org that they are working on a national initiative to get kids back into schools using outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
And specifically the working group that I was a part of focused on the school and park collaboration. And they were really thinking very large scale. Fairfax County Park Authorities had several members involved. Nova Parks had several members involved. Reston Association had 0. But I was involved, and I really thought about how would RA feel about this? What would they think? How could this work? Because they were really thinking large park spaces. And I know we just have so many fantastic play meadows that could be used as outdoor classrooms. But I know that one of the big issues that everybody kept bringing up was liability.
Mhm.
But that is definitely something that should be on RA's radar. They should start thinking about it. I posted the link to greenschoolyards.org in there. I really thought as kind of forward as I could, thinking, you reduce the liability by putting it on the schools, of course. So if they're willing to accept it, you kind of like let that slide, but making sure that everybody has really good emergency planning and all of that. But I think that it's definitely something that Reston should be involved with and should, as a park, there are some documents on there on how Reston can reach out to the school board, and Fairfax County Public Schools is on board with this. So there's a great chance to collaborate between the South Lakes District of Fairfax, the Pyramid, of Fairfax County Public Schools, and the Reston Association to help with this project. And I know that it's a rough one when we're thinking about non-assessment revenue, because this is not a revenue stream, but it is something that's really important. And then follow-up question, because I know our Reston's non-assessment revenue was greatly impacted. What are the plans, knowing that we're going to be under very similar restrictions as far as group size well into next summer? So what are the plans to kind of recoup that lost revenue, or to pivot and change from like an RA standpoint? Or have those plans not been made yet because the budget for next year is still under advisement?
I'm going to let Hank answer that. I'm going to throw the ball at him. And then but I'm also going to say, we're open to ideas from our members. So please don't be shy about sharing ideas, but go Hank.
Yeah, I think first, Liz, what I'd share is I think you're making an assumption that we're going to be into this well into the next year. We don't know what's going to be going on, but the plans we put in place is essentially, this is what you're going to see in the budget. You're going to see that we are putting in place the 2020 budget. Essentially, it's been modified. Fiscal committee's been working with us. Some of the non-assessment revenue initiatives we were thinking about last year that don't seem to make sense this year have been taken out of it. And what you've seen us do is manage very, very effectively as we got more and more information from the government and what was indeed the restrictions. So the game plan is to essentially put back the 2020 budget and manage it the way we've done this year, which again, we've done it effectively. We're doing well. And we're just, reacting and putting in motion information and data as we get it. So, but none of us know what's going to be going on 6 months from now. So this seems to be the best approach, seemed to be the approach the fiscal committee also agrees with. And there'll be more of this discussed at the board meeting on Thursday.
And also the month after that, and whenever do we get to our
Yeah, I look forward to listening in on that. And then, I brought this up as a member comment earlier, Reston ought to really look at separating the camps out and running them as a separate nonprofit, as a partner nonprofit. For my nonprofit, that runs camps, we were able to get quite a bit of government assistance because we're a 501c3, not a C4. And so if you look at separating out things like the camps program, where maybe there's some kickback to the Reston Association for that, just like it's run, just like Friends of Reston is a partner nonprofit with the association, you then don't run into the issues with the tax code with the 501c4, because that really is, all of our expenses are supposed to be covered with assessments, because that's what a community association, like, that's our revenue. Like, that's why we're a 501c4. So it might really make sense to start looking at those things and breaking off larger programs, so that if there is a large economic impact, again, hopefully we don't have another pandemic, but I really do, running a school, I really see that this is a long-term thing, and that it's very short-sighted to go, well, maybe there should be a contingency plan for next year looking very similar to this year as far as finances go. And I'm just curious. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna wrap this meeting up tonight, because I think we could keep going for quite some time, and I want everybody to have a reason to attend and watch our board meeting next Thursday night, or come back the following month as well. Join the community meeting on the Lake Thoreau environmental health on our lakes. And so the last thing I'm going to say to you is, all you folks who have joined me tonight, think about the fact that there is a term limit, as Mr. Farrell has said. I roll off in April of 2021. You will be voting for a new South Lakes district director in the first quarter of 2021. So I encourage you to think about volunteering yourself, volunteering and encouraging a neighbor in South Lakes, and anyone who wants to talk about what it means to be a director and the time commitment or the passion I have for my district and my community of Reston. There's how you reach me. There's my phone number. I don't sleep much, so, as people know, they get emails from me at all different times of the day and night. I forget to not send them until morning. But please do think about it. And I really do thank you for your involvement and engagement in our community tonight. And so therefore, it's a wrap. The next, oh, I'm sorry, Karen, you want to make this play for your next listening session?
Sure. If you have friends in Hunters Woods Dogwood, or even if you want to come and listen to what's going on in Hunters Woods Dogwood, join the Zoom call for the listening session next Monday, the 21st at 7 p.m. We'd love to have you.
Great, thank you. And again, have a great evening, everyone. Be safe, be well. Use the outdoor space of Reston Association, and wave to your neighbors.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.